So this week we set up several interviews. No real surprise there. After all, we are a recruitment company, so setting up interviews is kind of what we do. Anyway, one of the candidates that we had in for interview, well, they failed to show up for their interview with one of our clients. And when we finally did manage to get hold of them, well, they gave us an excuse. Now, the excuse they gave us, let's just say, was pretty interesting. And it got me thinking it'd be a very good idea to make a video about this. So, here goes. If you haven't seen our channel before, we do videos aimed to help employees either in employment or seeking employment. And as opposed to many of the channels that are out there that other recruitment companies do that we find a little bit wooden, a bit boring, a bit dull, and a bit unrelatable, we try to be just that, relatable, realistic, and give you an honest perception of what's really going on. If our content sounds like something that's going to interest you, do consider subscribing to our channel, and at the end of the video, if you like this one, give us a thumbs up. So, one of my guys that works for me, well, he had a candidate out for interview. The interview itself was a second stage interview, and it consisted of a basic skills test, which the guy was more than qualified to be able to pass easily, and following that, what he would then get was a golden handshake and a job offer, and it was done and dusted, basically. Or so we thought. But about 15 to 20 minutes into what was meant to be the interview slot, the client called us up. And they basically explained that the candidate hadn't shown up, and could we call the candidate to find out where they were, whether they were running late or something had happened. Now at this point, you might be thinking, well, so what? 15 to 20 minutes late, it might affect the guy getting the job, but people are late, traffic happens, could be anything like that. Well, in my experience, 9 out of 10 times that people are late for interview by 15 minutes, they just don't show for that interview. It's not where they turn up and go, oh yes, sorry I'm late. They just literally will not show up for the interview. So we do the obligatory, call the candidate up, try and find out where they are, whether they're late or anything like that. And predictably, as it always seems to be in these instances, you call up, the line rings out and it goes to voicemail. You call up again, same thing. You leave it 5 minutes, same thing again. They just don't answer. So you follow it up with a text message. The text itself basically said, look, the client's called up, blah, blah, blah. They've said you're late, just wondering what's going on. Has there been a problem? You're running late. Can you let me know so I can let the client know? Simple as that. If you are one of those people that likes to point the finger at recruiters and go, well, they ghost applicants, they never get back to them. Trust me, it's a two-sided coin. Anyway, a couple of hours go by and the candidate actually replies by text. But the message isn't from the candidate. It's from the candidate's girlfriend using his phone. Apparently, on the way to the interview, the candidate was involved in a serious car crash. So serious, in fact, that they were rushed straight to St Thomas's Hospital, put in ICU, and put into an induced coma. This is really serious stuff. Forget the job interview, eh? Let's just hope the guy pulls through. Yeah, right. Now, you might be watching this and thinking, come on, Seb, the guy's in hospital, he's in a coma. He's in the ICU unit. Show a bit of compassion, a bit of sympathy. But if you've done recruitment as long as I have, being a recruiter kind of makes you a bit cynical. And I've heard this kind of stuff tons and tons of times. You see, a couple of days later, this same candidate who is apparently in an ICU bed in a medically induced coma, well, he decided to apply for a couple of other jobs with one of my other colleagues. Right, let me get this straight. You're in a medically induced coma, but 48 hours later, you decide it'd be a good idea to apply for a couple of other jobs. As you do. I mean, to be fair, the NHS are amazing at what they do, but getting people to recover from critical injuries in a 48-hour period, wow, they are really coming on leaps and bounds, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? Seriously? Now, the other consultant that works for me, he wasn't even aware of this incident. He didn't know anything about it, so we actually interviewed the guy and had a good chat with him. And we know because he put his notes down on the system afterwards of what the guy's situation was. And guess what? He failed to mention that he'd had any critical injuries and been involved in a serious car accident just 48 hours earlier. Now, for the sake of argument, this was the same candidate. Same name, same mobile number, same address, same email, same date of birth. Based on all the evidence available, I think it's fair to assume that the candidate was lying. There was no car accident, there was no ICU unit, there was no medically induced coma. I don't know what your reaction to that situation would be if you was the person being lied to about something quite so dramatic. Especially if you were someone that knew or had people close to you, or even yourself had been involved in a serious car accident and been in that situation. Doesn't seem like the sort of thing you want to be lying about. So it can be really easy to want to sit there and bite back and call the candidate up, give them a lot of abuse, but our company's principles and values are actually not to ever challenge a candidate on their reasons for never attending an interview. We believe in operating with a level of professional restraint. You don't want to get into a disagreement or an altercation with a candidate, so we just let it go. We try to do the professional thing, even though on an emotional level it's easier said than done. You see, extreme excuses are actually really commonplace when you are a recruitment consultant. If people don't want to go to interview, they never just call up and go, "Hi Seb, yeah, that interview, I don't want to go to it anymore." Oh no. Doesn't happen. Nobody does it like that. Instead, they'll text us or email us with something more, I don't know, imaginative. Well, at least they must think it's imaginative because it almost never is. Well, not to a recruiter anyway. For example, "I cannot attend the interview today because my child has been rushed into hospital." Believe it or not, when someone doesn't want to show up for interview or they cancel the interview with late notice, that is almost always one of the most common reasons why. I think I've had it like 3 times since lockdown opened up again. Well, either that or there's a hell of a lot of sick kids out there. I'm sorry to vent a little bit here, but what also annoys me is people using their kids as a reason for not attending interview. "My child's been rushed into hospital after having a serious accident." I mean, that's sick. Imagine if the other family members knew that that person was doing it. And these people aren't like yobbo oiks or anything. Many of these people are in respectable positions. They're seen as upstanding members of society. Yet people don't realise that commonly people use the excuse of their kids being in serious accidents for not attending interview. But what's the matter? That not extreme enough for you? Let's try this one out for size then. A father once told me that he could not attend interview because his only daughter had tragically died. I remember this one because it was really early on in my career, and as a father of 2 young daughters myself, I remember it really hitting me quite hard. I felt really bad about it. I felt guilty about questioning why the guy didn't show up for interview. So I actually called him up on his house phone about 3 days later just to offer me condolences and see how he was bearing up really. But he didn't answer the phone. You see, his daughter answered the phone. And I know it was his daughter because afterwards she called, "Daddy, phone, still want more?" I had a guy that went to interview and didn't show up. So I do the normal, call the candidate up, work out what was going on, and surprise, surprise, they don't answer. So I text them to find out where they were, what was going on. A couple of hours later, he texts me back saying that he couldn't attend interview because his car had broken down, but could I rearrange the interview? Now, candidates always seem to have this thing to save face to go, "Can you rearrange the interview for me?" Even if they have no interest whatsoever in rearranging the interview, they just say it to save face. So I always call their bluff a little bit. So I said to the guy, "Look, the client themselves has had this situation happen before. I tell you what, if I go back to them and I say, 'Could you rearrange?' they'll go, they're really dubious of it. People, car broke down, they had car trouble, can't attend. Could you send me a photo so I can show the client themselves that here he is, dressed up, side of the road, you know, ready to come to the interview. This is why he couldn't attend." And I did this, and usually whenever I do something like that, you never hear from the candidate again. And the client themselves, you go, "Look, because the client always asks you, why don't they show up?" This was the excuse. I asked them, could they send me a photo? They sent me nothing again. "Look, I think the guy was probably telling a few porky pies there, and we'll go on to someone else." But this candidate, well, he sent me a photo back, and it was him in a suit with his car bonnet up on the side of the road. And, well, I thought, okay, this one time, here we are. Someone's actually telling the truth. Someone's got to tell the truth sometimes. So I rearranged the interview for a couple of days later. And the candidate himself is due to go in, all happy, all good to go, happy days. I even text the guy in the morning. But when it comes to the interview, surprise, surprise, he doesn't show up. Nowhere to be seen. And to this day, I've never heard from him again. The new excuse we're getting is people saying, "Unfortunately, I don't feel I'm able to attend the interview today because I've had a mental health relapse." I've had that twice this month. This is coming on quite commonly from lockdown. And I know it's a serious situation, but these same people that are giving you excuses for not being able to attend the interview and their kids being involved in serious car accidents and all this kind of stuff, well, those same people end up a day later, or even on the same day sometimes, applying for other jobs with us in other locations locally. And we know it's the same person because it's the same phone number, address, name, telephone number. They're the same people. Why are they lying about this, and why are they making these crazy excuses? Yet all these excuses, we've heard them all before, but they get more and more extreme, and people do it because they're worried that somehow we're going to try and call them up and talk them around it. Let me tell you how it works in recruitment and why I couldn't give a damn about trying to talk you around going to an interview. You see, we don't get paid unless you stay in a job for a certain period of time. That's the case for permanent positions anyway. If you're going for a contract role and you don't turn up, or a temporary role, that's different. But for permanent positions, you have to stay in a job for, say, 2-3 months for the client then to go, okay, we'll pay the money, or they have what's called a rebate period, which is basically a refund. So you've got to go to the job, stay in it for 2 to 3 months in order for us to get paid. So if you've got no intention of taking the job, or you don't want the job, why on earth are we going to bother trying to talk you into it? Because you'll leave within that period, and all we'll get out of it is a waste of time and a client calling us up angry about why someone we've placed has just left. So if you don't want to go to it, great, that answers it for us. We'll just go and get someone who does. Try to talk around it and give it some crazy excuse. Don't make a blind bit of difference. Just call us up and go, Seb, I don't want to go to the interview. And we're like, yeah, fine, happy days, we'll move on. I just wish people have the guts to be honest about stuff, rather than just coming up with these mamby-pamby excuses. Well, I better give them an excuse because, otherwise it sounds crazy. Just tell us. I've said it before in these videos, I'm going to bite you. I don't care. Just tell us how it is. If you don't want the job, just say. Anyway, as much as this video's kind of turned into a bit of a rant, I didn't originally intend it to be like that, but hopefully it's at least given you a bit of an insight into what it's like to be a recruitment consultant, and I guess the interesting kind of questionable parts of the job that perhaps the general public don't see. But if you like this video and you want to see more stuff like it, do consider subscribing to our channel, give us a quick like, thumbs up for it, and click the bell icon so you're not going to miss any one of our forthcoming videos.